How's everybody doing today? Today we're doing things a little bit different. As you can see, we're not in the store. I'm gonna go over some real life product reviews with you today. We are at my house. After we do the product reviews, I'm gonna give you a tour of my fish tanks and let you know what products we are using on what tanks. I like real life experience with products. I don't just like reading about them or what the company tells me they're gonna do. I prefer to actually test them out myself. Therefore, when you ask me a question about it, I can give you a completely honest answer of how this product works, product longevity, and several other aspects of the product, like electricity usage and things like that. I use all of these products in my home. Coral food. I use the Coral Max that we sell at the store. It's a wonderful product. The feeding response from this stuff is great. Water clarity, we use the Fritz Max Out Pro at my home. In all my tanks, they're all crystal clear, as you will see soon. Basically, all this other stuff is just, it's something that's used in all of my tanks. One product I use on every tank is the Reef Breeders Ato. Every single tank I have in my house, I use this product on. It's the simplest to use ATO. It has never let me down. I have some that are going on 7-8 years now. They work great. I also use the Reef Breeders dosing pump on my reef tank. The reef tank is set up with complete Neptune stuff, but as another fail-safe, I don't want the Neptune dosing my tank as well as monitoring it. So I let the Neptune monitor it, and I dose it with the Reef Breeders Wi-Fi dosing pump. For temperature control on my other tanks that aren't on the Apex, because as you know, the Apex only comes with one set of probes, and I didn't feel like putting probes in all my tanks. I use the Finex digital temperature controller on the other heaters. Product works great. I use several different return pumps. My favorite by far is the Seekonk. It is the quietest pump. You can't even hear some of my tanks running, especially the ones with the Seekonks. My big tank, I'm using very, very old school. It's a product called the Little Giant. They're basically swimming pool pumps, and all you can hear when you go near that tank is the hum of those pumps. I'm probably gonna be replacing them because they're very old pumps. They're going on about 10 years now. That could be where all the noise is coming from. But today, the main product we're gonna focus on is this dose pump by Neptune. Probably the most overbuilt dosing pump in the industry. It's so overbuilt, I don't use it for dosing. I use these for auto water changes. I have 4 tanks running auto water changes with these pumps. My longest is going on over 5 years now, and the pump is still working perfectly. Every once in a while, the head will wear out. The great thing is the heads are replaceable. You just buy a new head and pop it in. What happens is it's on a roller mechanism and there's a tube inside there. Every once in a while, that roller mechanism will pinch the tube and this head needs to be replaced. It only happens every couple of years or so. The big advantage of this pump is it pumps up to 60 feet. The one disadvantage of this pump is it is the noisiest thing you will ever hear in your life if you're changing out, say, 7 gallons of water over a 24-hour period. The 60-foot comes into play there because you can stash this thing off in a closet somewhere and soundproof that closet, and you will never hear it running. It basically runs on airline tubing, which you can drill small holes anywhere you want and hide the tubing. You never see it. Once you stash it in that soundproof closet, you honestly never hear it. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. For dosing, we use the Fritz RPM elements, calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. Lighting, I use several different types of lights in this house. I use Marine Orbit and a fish only. I use Radions. I use AIs. I use Kessels. Like I said, it's real life experience, and I want to give you guys real life answers when you ask me a question on how a product works. I'm not good at programming the lights. That's where Amy comes into play. She does all the light programming for me. I can program an Apex. For some reason, me and the lights don't get along. So if you want a lighting program specifically, you can ask her and she can take care of it for you. She takes care of the lights at the store also. I set them up, she programs them. As far as the Apex system goes, a lot of you guys have heard me praising the Trident. I love the Trident system because, like I said, I'm pretty lazy and I can't stand testing my water. Just in case the Trident ever acts up, I also own all the Hanna checkers. Hanna doesn't have a magnesium one that I know of at the moment, so I use Salifert to test the magnesium. I do that about once a month just to make sure the Trident is still giving me the correct parameters. For salinity, I take laziness to a whole new level. It's expensive, but I use the Milwaukee. You put a drop of water on it, you hit a button, it gives you your exact salinity. Like I said, I'm a lazy guy when it comes to testing water. I could look through a refractometer for half the price of this, but I just don't want to. I want to push a button and get the result. I think that pretty much covers most of this stuff. You've had enough of my boring conversation. Let's go look at some fish tanks. Okay, this tank has a marine orbit light on it. It doesn't grow coral very well, but it's only a 4-foot light bar. This is a 6-foot tank. For a fish-only tank, it's lighting this tank up very well. This tank grows barely any algae. There is a fish in here. He's about an 8 to 9 inch Panther Grouper. He has to live by himself because he eats anybody he comes in contact with. He's going to be going to live at the farm in a few weeks. We're putting in a 450-gallon rock vat there, and that's going to be his new home because he is outgrowing this 150-gallon tank. All right, a lot of you guys probably think I have a salt mixing station. I don't. I do have an RO vat. My salt mixing station is I wheel this over once a week. It's full of water right now, so I fill it up, I mix the salt in there, and I wheel it through here over to my holding vats because doing the auto water changes, I've only got to mess with the water once a week. I fill up the vats and that is it. Complete maintenance on all these tanks you're about to see is maybe 20 minutes a week, which makes my life a lot easier since I'm working on tanks at work all day long. I don't want to do it when I get home. One thing that will help you take care of a lot of tanks if you ever want to set up a large fish room is to centralize everything. Like I said, my salt water is right there. My RO water is right here. My fish food is right here. The vats I need to fill are right there, and all the other tanks are over here in this fish room. Let's take a walk over and check out some tanks. This is my coral tank. All of this stuff used to be in a 328 gallon. It just got to be too much work in that tank because if I ever dropped something, tank's 3 feet deep, I'd have to go in there with tongs, and you can't see the bottom of the tank when you're in there with tongs. So Amy would have to direct me with the tongs, and it got to be too much. So I downsized my coral tank into this 130.4. Wonderful tank. All the equipment's underneath. I'm sorry, it's kind of a mess under there right now. Wire management. When you get a tank like this going, there's always wire management. I did a control board, and it was all nice and clean, and since then it's just a pile of wires. Once again, some of you people know that pain. This tank is run with 2 Radion G4 Pros, 2 48-inch aluminum bars from Reef Breeders. All this equipment has been working flawlessly for me. This tank has been set up for about 2.5, 3 years now. A lot of you guys remember our mascot Fred from the old store, and people wonder where he ended up. Well, he ended up in this tank. There's our boy Fred. He's still splashing water all over the place. He's still making a mess, but I love the guy. He's a great fish. We have a Harlequin Tuscan here, Queen Angel, Clown Trigger, Desjardini Sailfin, Achilles Tang. He's going on a little over 5 years now. Fox Face, large pair of Clarky Clowns, Hippo Tang, Yellow Tang, Unicorn Tang. The school of Chromis that's in here lays eggs about every 2 weeks. Never been able to hatch them out because they get eaten as soon as they lay them, but it's still pretty cool to have fish spawning in your aquarium, especially saltwater. I know you freshwater guys, it happens all the time. Us salties, it doesn't happen for us all that often. All the corals that are in this tank are basically in here for food. A lot of these guys eat coral, and it helps supplement their diet. It's mostly Kenya trees they're eating. They don't like the hairy mushrooms. They do pick at the Sinulار leathers and the Gorgonians occasionally. The one good thing is if I ever get a green or brown pally explosion in my reef tank, I throw them in here and those things are gone within seconds. They love eating pallies. A lot of people are giving me a hassle because I've been setting up freshwater tanks lately. But like I said earlier, I'm a person that learns from experience. And now that I'm dealing with a lot more freshwater customers, I've got to start learning how to do freshwater myself. So I've set up these dual water boxes. This one's kind of a Star Wars theme, kind of a community tank. Your average stuff, like I said, it's a learning curve for me. I haven't done freshwater in almost 31 years. A lot of it's coming back to me. I just want to give you guys the best advice I possibly can. Over here is my discus tank. I love this tank. I stare at this for hours when I get home after work. I never thought of myself as a freshwater guy. I always thought of myself as a saltwater guy until I set up this discus tank. I'm not a freshwater guy, but I am a discus guy now. These fish are just so beautiful. Their colors rival that of saltwater fish. They're so much easier to care for. The one thing is they need large water changes, but I just hooked them up to an auto water change system and I don't have to worry about that. So all I do is feed them twice a day, turn the temperature up to 84 degrees. The glass on this tank was cleaned about a week ago and it hasn't gotten a physical water change in 3 weeks now. And it's immaculate, the fish are happy, the fish are healthy. Lighting on this tank, we're running 3 AI Hydra 32s. It's a 7-foot tank and 3 of them are lighting it up pretty well. The lighting on this 50.3, we're using a Reef Breeders. It works very well. It's a great light for fresh or salt water. On this tank, I went full salt water for this discus build. It's even got Radions lighting it, 2 G4 Pros. They do have a fresh water setting. A lot of people don't realize that. The folks at Seashay were kind enough to hook me up with an SDC 7.0 return pump for this. It's their DC return pump. It has an app you download to your phone, or it has a controller. It is by far the most versatile and quiet pump I have ever used. In all my builds from now on, I'm probably going to use that as a return pump because I'm just so impressed by the quality of it.
All right, guys, this is our stack that we have here for the quarantine, for the freshwater observation. We have plecos in this one, we have black tetras in this one, we have catfish, we have the black angels. There is an arowana in here. He likes to jump because this has little areas on the inside that are low, so he's able to jump from tank to tank. And then I have a koi who's down in here, who's waiting for my pond to be finished so that way there he can go out there. And then down on the bottom level is where we're curing our live rock, and then we have one fish that's down there. It's a firefish. He was very mean, so he's just in his own tank for right now. And then over here around the corner, when we have a coral that needs to be fragged out because it's too big, this is where I take care of it. I've got my little area here that I can put water in, put the coral in here while I'm cutting it up and fragging it out for him and gluing it to a frag plug. And then as you see, I have the blue light, but I also have it so that I can put on white light as well so I can actually see what I'm doing. I've got my goggles, there are masks so that I'm covered, or I actually just got this thing, which is a mask and shield all in one, so that way there, my eyes are covered. So if I'm working with a pally and it squirts, it's not gonna get in my eye.
Also hidden amongst all of these larger tanks, we have one of the Lifeguard 4-gallon peninsulas. It's a great little tank. There is a beta in there. He's hiding in the plants right now, and there's a couple little guppies in there. You're really not supposed to mix those two together, but we experiment with stuff and it's working so far. This is a great little starter tank, and if you have a beta, instead of keeping them in a bowl, you keep them in a nice filtered tank, and the maintenance is almost zero on this tank. Okay, we're gonna end this with the ugly section. This is basically the control room. There's 2 RODI units in here that are filling up that vat I showed you earlier. There's a freshwater holding tank here, saltwater holding tank here. chiller that runs 2 of the tanks. It's off right now because we don't need a chiller yet, but when you do, chillers come in very handy. One other thing that I completely forgot to mention, if you are going to do a fish room this size at your own home, please buy a generator before you do this, because if the power goes out with this many tanks and you don't have a generator, no car inverter or anything like that is going to save you. You honestly need a generator. It doesn't cost that much. It's a must. It honestly is. Have a great day, guys.